Coming to you live from the El Cap studios for Beyond the Scoreboard, your weekly Wednesday sports update podcast here at lcsportsnet.com. Following along on Twitter and on Facebook Live as well. Thanks for joining us. Alongside Eric Thomas, I'm James Dotson. Eric, I can't believe it. We get through this week. We're a third of the way through the season already.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It comes and goes pretty quick, and we were just talking off air a little bit about what some of these teams are going to need to do the rest of the way, and it's sort of odd that after 2 weeks, I know we said last week was all about overreactions and all that, but now that you have a larger sample size, it's time to start thinking about, hey, this team needs to win here. Maybe this is a big game for them early. It's amazing how this just all – we wait for it to get here so long, and then it gets here, and then it's gone. We wake up, and it's gone.
Just like that,
yep.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right, and let's get that out of the way right now. The overreactions from last week – they're no longer going to be overreactions. Now you have maybe one more week to really get a full grasp of what each team is going to end up being. And I think you're exactly right. The overreaction time is now here and gone. We know for the most part what we're seeing from these teams, and these teams and coaches certainly know at this point what they need to improve upon here for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, big sample size for a lot of teams, and I think we did the game last week with Mohawk and Laurel, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit more in depth, but there's certain games where you looked at it and just went, man, it just wasn't some team's night, and we expect them to probably bounce back and still be good the rest of the way. And then there was other games like Newcastle where it was just like, where was the defense that we saw in week 0 and what happened? And, it just – there's so many things that can happen in a high school season, and so many times you see things tend to snowball and not in the right direction for teams either. I mean, Laurel was fortunate last year that they got out of it halfway through the season and started playing their best football. And, I know that they had to they changed their offense around and redid some things early in the year and all that. And then it finally just kind of took hold and caught for them. There's some teams that, now that we've seen 2 weeks, you start scratching your head a little bit about where the depth is and why these, this part of their program or this part of their team isn't, firing right now. And, we got a long way to go yet, but it's going to be in a short amount of time. It's going to feel like it's in such a short amount of time. So then you get to next week, and then you get the week after, and you start thinking, man, we got to start piling up some wins here, or we got to start fixing things now so we don't have to try to do it when it's too late in the season. And I think we have a couple of teams that I'm not going to say are in that direction right now, but the chances that they're going to go in that direction more so than not might be showing their head a little bit.
Before we look ahead here to the third week of the season, let's back it up real quick and take a look at some of those games. Again, 3 county matchups. The one Eric and I got to see was Laurel at Mohawk, and a tale of two halves. It was a really good start to the game for sure. Mohawk goes right down on the opening drive, gets the touchdown. They controlled the first quarter, but Laurel kind of chipped away, and same as you saw the week before, they took advantage of a good field position. They really didn't have a lot of yards in the game. I think they finished with 248, but they took advantage of short fields, and they capitalized on the opportunities that they were given.
Now, their defense was aided by the fact that Cash Stratton goes out of the game late in the first half. That's a big blow for Mohawk, but their defense up until that point, outside of the first drive, really controlled the game anyway. So they were sitting in a good position. We said it right before the half on the broadcast about if they went up by 2 scores before the half, that could be a little bit of trouble for Mohawk, knowing that they were going to get the kick in the second half, Laurel. And then what do they do with the kick? They go right down the field, 92 yards for a touchdown on the kickoff. So.
Hey, why don't we take a listen to that one? Because Eric had a pretty good, understandably good call of a great start to the second half.
Will receive, and we are underway here as the lights are on in full here at Laurel's beautiful field. We got another good return. Here comes Faulkner right up the gut. Faulkner's going to start the second half by taking this all the way to the house for a touchdown.
And Eric, it's so similar to the first kick return he had, just a wide open avenue. They found something, they exploited it, and as if the wind wasn't out of the sails already with the injury to Cash Stratton, knee injury. Don't know the extent. We know he won't play this week, but that was just completely wind out of the sails for sure for the Mohawk team right then and there.
It was, and at that point, I mean, that game was over. There was just no life in the Mohawk side. And what was so surprising about that is they still had the best player on their team on the field, and arguably the best player in the game on the field at that point in Bobby Fadden. They just couldn't muster anything. And we've said time after time here in the preseason and then the first couple weeks of the show and of our games and everything about how Mohawk has, I think that they are, despite the numbers that some of these quarterbacks have thrown out there, and it's easy to say if a team doesn't run the ball, they can't win. That's a run team. I believe that that's a run-first team. I mean, when you look at what they did in the playoffs a couple seasons ago against Steel Valley, Jay Ronan didn't have a great game that night. Justin Boston was fantastic.
Yeah.
They have to run the football. Last year, they didn't have a dominant ball carrier, but they had 3 guys who had 6'6" and 400 yards, respectively. So they were still able to put together a great rushing performance last season. Their running game has gotten better and better by leaps and bounds the last 4 or 5 years. If they can't run the ball, they can't win a game. I firmly believe that. It doesn't matter who their quarterback is. They have to run the football. That's a big piece of their offense. You're already down now 3 scores. You don't have your second best offensive weapon, and they just couldn't muster anything on the ground after that. Laurel's defense ate them up. That was and it's not any disrespect to the two teams. It was a boring second half because it was over.
Yeah.
It just really was. Laurel knew they could coast. They didn't have to risk anything. Offense, didn't have to do a whole lot. Nathan Hill looked great in limited role. But not limited by his knee. It was limited because they didn't need him.
Yeah, and you know what? Speak to that, though, too. The fact that they have been very careful in bringing him back in. He was not listed as defensive starter. We saw him in there at times, though, on defense. And more than that, too, you look at the fact of they're not overusing him after missing his entire sophomore year with a knee injury. And I think it's just been absolutely perfect and great the way that they've set it up.
And the way their offense is set up, they have 3-4 guys who can carry the ball anyway. So he doesn't have to be a 20-carry guy. But I just have this feeling that there's going to be a game somewhere where he's got the hot hand, and maybe it's against Southside, maybe it's against Neshannock for a title or something like that, where he is going to have like a 19-carry, 130-yard performance. Yeah. And he may not do it the whole season. He may have a good season, but he may not have, a 1,500-yard season. He may not be the bell cow that a guy like Palmer McCain was last year for Elwood City, but you can kind of see that he's really starting to get his footing under him a little bit. And didn't have to do a whole lot against Elwood City, still scored the touchdown, didn't have to do a whole lot last week and looked better. And, I think he's going to look pretty good this week, too. I wouldn't be stunned if we see a really like a bust-out kind of welcome back to football performance from him here in the next week or two.
Shout out real quick, Tony Geiwitz as well. 39-yard field goal, the touchbacks, making it long fields the entire time. Also just demoralizing for an opposition. 2 interceptions on defense as well. He was the MVP of the game there on Friday night, that 36-6 win for Laurel. The other game we covered, Neshannock taking it to Union, a good bounce-back win for the Lancers. And let's get right into it with right off the bat, first play from scrimmage, Eric. How about that? First play from scrimmage, taking it to the house.
Back to pass, throw out to Frazo on the swing. Frazo has stud, up to go. He's going to break it all the way. He's to the 40, to the 30. He's going to get into the end zone for a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage. And just like that, the Lancers are on the scoreboard with 11:42 to play here in the first quarter. That goes 72
yards. How about that? Back-to-back weeks, really, that they caught fire less than a minute into the game. This time they were able to sustain it and keep it going. Mazzaka with 4 total touchdowns in the game.
Big plays aren't there. That's not going to be an issue for them all season, just like it wasn't last year. Their offense struggled against Mohawk at times, but Union, I sort of expected a sloppy performance from them, just given the fact that it was their first game, and they got to get their in-game shape, so to speak. But 418 yards of offense. They ran for 264. Mazzaka was 10 of 14. They had 22 first downs in that game.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know I guess it got into the mercy rule at some point, but I didn't look at the line score. But, Union, come on. I mean, 12 penalties for 112 yards. You can't help a team like Neshannock out like that. I honestly would, and I don't, he can take my advice or not. I don't really care if he does. I'm not a coach, so he understands his team better than I do. I would not play an extra scrimmage if I'm Union. I understand the roster limitations and things like that. I would play a game in week 0. I just think you can't replicate what you're getting in games. You can't have those controlled 10-play things. That's not how a game goes. You're basically, if you throw a pick in your 10 plays, you're redoing the 10 plays anyway, so there's no punishment for it. There's no defense that has to go right back out in the field. I think that playing the full schedule is honestly the way to go, and you got to go all out. You have to go all out week in and week out in order to get some kind of continuity with your team. I don't think you can really Union's not in a position now where they can look at the schedule and go, well, we can take our chances here, here, and here. I think they may struggle for wins all season and hover around 500. They got to start taking some chances and go for wins now.
Yeah.
Like it can't be just wait and see like who we get matched up against and beat the teams that we're supposed to. They got to take one of these games that maybe they shouldn't here somewhere along the line.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be very easy against Washington here this week, and also not good news. It sounds like coming out of Union either. 34 players on the roster, at least 4 who are expected not to be able to go due to injury come Friday night.
And a short week then too.
Yeah,
you got to rebound for a short week for a Thursday night game.
Right, exactly. So we'll see how that goes. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you're bringing in one of the top teams in Class 2A in the Little Prexies, who are not little whatsoever, especially up front. More on that game coming up. But, talk about Neshannock, though, getting it done. I mean, obviously, they did what they needed to do defensively. Offensively, yeah, you mentioned the 400 yards, but it wasn't like, forcing anything. It was all take what the defense gives you, and that was what Coach Bonjavengo said. Got to get back to Lancer football, and I think they did that perfectly, finding the weaknesses and taking what was given to you each play.
You throw that Mohawk game out, it's a rivalry game. Anything, It's a 50-50 game every year. I know that series was a little lopsided there for a while, but you just kind of have to toss that away and start focusing on what's in front of you. And from an Neshannock standpoint, okay, so they come back after week 0. It's not like they played bad against Mohawk in the first half. I mean, they were going punch for punch with them, and then Mohawk defense just got a hold of that game, and Neshannock couldn't put anything together on offense. But they come back, they win that game. They're in pretty good shape, and I think that's they started showing, and we know what they're capable of anyway. I kind of wonder a little bit this week about Elwood City, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our previews, because I think that Elwood City defense showed some teeth this past week as well. But I think Neshannock's in a pretty good spot right now. All indications still point to, and I know Southside has struggled a little bit early on, but all indications are pointing to a kind of a 3-team tournament between Neshannock, Southside, and Laurel to figure out this Big 7.
And that was the last 3 weeks of the year last year, and same thing again on the schedule this year if that comes to fruition. The other game, Shenango, you just kind of mentioned it, Elwood defeating Shenango 21-0. Talk about a team taking what's given to you and methodically working it down the field. I think they had an 18-play scoring drive and a 16-play scoring drive in that game. Just controlled the game, held Shenango under 50 yards. We'll talk about the Cats needing to figure some things out offensively, but again, a bounce back for Elwood City, a big point there for Coach Bradley.
Yeah, and good performance by Travis Smiley. I think they have a little bit of confidence in him going into a third game, 9 of 14 in that game. Team ran for almost 200 yards. So they seem like they were more themselves, and we maybe thought that was going to be the case with this team where early on they weren't going to show. Obviously, they can't be what they were a year ago because they lost so many pieces from a year ago. But, we knew that they were going to be able to start showing some mettle here a little bit. They still have a lot of things in front of them. They start playing some of their best football. Maybe they pick off a win that they quote shouldn't have, or they start stringing some wins together. I think their defense is actually going to be pretty good the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And they're going to cause some problems for teams. They're going to keep them in the games. The problem that they're going to run into is, can they get consistency on offense? Can they run for 200 yards or 188 yards, a game? Ken Smiley, when he needs to, he didn't throw for a ton of yards last week, but he was 9 of 14. Mm-hmm. And 2 of those 9 were for touchdowns. If they get that kind of performance from him week in and week out, they're winning football games. Yeah. Simple as that. But they got to find consistency along the way. And that's going to be the key, where last year you could just turn and hand it off to a dude, and your quarterback got hotter as the season went on. It's going to take a little bit more to progress this season, but they just have to strive for consistency. And if they do that, they're going to be in every game.
You're not going to find an Elijah Palmer Kane as is, but almost, go Moneyball style. Replace him in the aggregate, and that's what it was. Tyler Smiley, the quarterback, had 11 carries. Richard Curtin had 15 carries. He had the rushing touchdown, and Julian Frisk had 12 carries. Oh, Anthony Barbario also had 8 carries. They spread the wealth. You got the fresh legs, and I think that's going to be their success, is continuing to do that throughout the course of the year. They'll take on Neshannock. We'll update that one and preview that one here coming up later in the show. Newcastle went from highest of highs to lowest of lows. Big credit to Hopewell. That's a good Hopewell team. Quarterback, I believe, ended up being many media outlets player of the week. You got his stat line. Final score was 31-6, but Hopewell might be knocking on the doorstep of something special this year.
Yeah, they might be, and they were very balanced in this game. They led 17-6 in the first quarter. Newcastle, again, 9 penalties, 72 yards. This is a pretty experienced Newcastle team minus the quarterback position.
Yeah.
not a team that should be committing 9 penalties for 72 yards, given what they have experience-wise. And I know that that's something they probably worked on this week. But the other, to me, the biggest key in this game, we know that he's going to go through growing pains as a starter this year, Marino Graham, but he did have the big 65-yard touchdown pass to Kai Cox in the game for their only score. But they turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions. You can't turn the ball over 5 times and commit 9 penalties against a team that good. You eliminate the penalties, you might be able to survive the turnovers, or if you don't turn the ball over, you might be able to survive the penalties. Yeah. You can't have both.
Well, and they recovered 3 fumbles themselves. I mean, that's a game that they should have been right in there or should have at least a turnover advantage. You get 3 fumble recoveries defensively, and you're still negative in the turnover margin.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's definitely, I know, something that was going to be a point of emphasis this week. Have the players carry the ball around school all week to make sure you don't drop me.
So their next couple of games, Highlands is 1-1. And they lost a close game to Armstrong. They were blown out by Elizabeth Forward last week. Yock is 2-0, probably going to be undefeated when they play Newcastle in 2 weeks. Knock can't score, so they're 0-2 right now. They've been outscored 90-10 in 2 games, and they get Fox Chapel and Montour before they play Newcastle. So they possibly could be looking at an
still having 10 points on the board. In 2
right,
weeks.
Exactly, especially against that Montour team, who by all accounts is playing pretty good defense right now. But the key to me here is they have got to win minimum 2 of the next 3 games. They've got to figure it out. And it surprises me a little bit that this team can't run the ball, given that their offensive line's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Marino Graham, I know he's a dual threat guy. I know that he's going to run the football. They got to find somebody who can carry the rock for him. I mean, they have to have a consistent ball carrier to help him and take pressure off of that, to get that offensive line asserted, to kind of impose their will on the other team and start pushing people around. This is a really crucial stretch for them. And I know, again, it's only been 2 games. The reason why this stretch is crucial, because the stretch after that is Aliquippa, Montour, and West Allegheny. And God bless if you can't get a win in the next 3 and you got to go to that 3, it's going to be a rough path if that happens.
Well, I mean, Coach Mazzocco and Coach DePorzio, who we talk with all the time, and they said it flat out. We know that there's going to be growing pains, and that is understandable. You got to be able to control things you can. Turnovers are one for sure. Penalties even more, especially the pre-snap penalties. I know are absolutely killer. You're exactly right. Those penalty numbers are just too high. And yeah, I'm curious why the rushing numbers haven't been higher. Jermaine Walker was somebody who we saw at the end of last year. Really fun to watch running the football. 7 carries for 1 yard in the Penn Hills game. 6 carries for 23 yards as a total. 39 yards of rushing against Hopewell, and that's just not going to cut it.
No.
Back to basics. I think you also wonder, also with a freshman quarterback, second year with the team, the offense is going to be easier for everybody to understand, but it's still a freshman coming in, having to learn it all. You wonder if the playbook is slightly limited just at the beginning of the year. Not sure if that's true or not, but
it could be true.
Or whether it's intentionally that they're restricting it to not give a young kid too much on his shoulders right away too.
Yeah, and keep it kind of basic things for him to understand, kind of ease into the game a little bit. There's ways to ease a quarterback into the game, and then there's not. And I think what Freddie did in week 0, I don't know that they lose that game even if the 2 guys played for Penn Hills. That's how good their defense was in the first game. Where it gets a little, hey, let's see what they can do here, because their offense looks like they're about to blow up. I mean, they've shown a lot of potential. Their touchdown drive in the 3rd quarter against Penn Hills was fantastic. They've obviously got big play capability with a 65-yard strike.
And that was beautiful. That was going through a progression, looking one way, finding the open receiver. I mean, it was perfect textbook quarterback play.
Now let's see you in a game start to piece these things together in one game instead of spreading them out over a couple games. And I think to your point, that's where this comes back where, okay, we've kind of eased things up for you a little bit here so you can understand the job and understand what we expect of you. But now here's a little bit more expectations. Here's a little bit more expectations. And as the season grows, so does the quarterback, and so does the responsibility that they bestow on him. And this team looks like they have potential to have just a game where they kick the hell out of whoever they're across from. And for their sake, I really hope it comes in the next couple of, like in the next game, for their sake, simply because I want this team to play. They had a ton of confidence. They played with a lot of fire in that game against Penn Hills. I want to see that against Yock. I want to see that against Knock. And I want to have a little bit of confidence, a little bit more than what I do right now going into that 3-game stretch. I still think there's potential that they can win 2 of those 3 games in the middle of the season. But they've got to get 2 of these 3, I think, now and put those together, and then they can be in better shape. If they get through this next 3-game stretch like 1-2,
Right.
0-3 against those 3 tough teams could happen. It could happen anyway, just depending on how good they are. But you get 2 of them to come to you. I think West Allegheny comes here too. No, West Allegheny was here last year.
No, all 3 of those games.
So all 3 games come here.
All 3 in the first 3 in the conference are all at Taggart. Yes.
Okay, so that's a big difference.
Yes.
Taggart's going to make sure that stadium is loud and, all due respect, obnoxious for the output of the game. Like, I mean that in a good way. And they got to give them a home field advantage. But I want the kids to walk into that environment, and I want them to feel the confidence that people have in them because they've been playing good football going into that stretch.
Right.
And that starts this week. And if they can get 2 of these next 3, I think they're gonna feel pretty good about where they're at. And when they feel pretty good about where they're at, anything happens in that next 3-game stretch.
Real quick, the final game from last Friday was Wilmington, a back-and-forth game. They end up not being able to get the final blow. Hubbard gets the final touchdown, 28-21, the final in that one. Chase Mitchelltree, again, over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. Rowan Miller splitting time at quarterback with Wesley Vascal, each bringing their own thing. Rowan especially running the football, really, really solid. 73 yards and a touchdown of his own on the ground. Vascal also had a rushing touchdown. So everybody getting involved. Again, replacing Jamie Miller's role kind of in the aggregate as well. This is, no loss is a good loss, but this is one, again, it was a good battle fighting to the very end against a solid Hubbard team. And when you compare it to what last year's score was against this team, I think that also speaks volumes. I know Hubbard's not quite as good as they were a year ago, but still, I think a positive result in the end, even with one in the L column for Wilmington.
It's the best loss that anybody had all week, and it's going to be one of the best, quote-unquote, best losses all season long. This was 14-14, and statistically, Wilmington was right there with them the whole game, and all they did was run the football. So that tells you how good their running game is, even without Jamie Miller. They're not going to see anybody as good as this team until they get to a potential Whitfield team or District 10 final, whether it's Fort Cherry or Clareton or whoever. But if they can run the football like they did against Hubbard last week, I don't care who's in front of them, because that's going to be tough to stop when you're running downhill like that. And I know guys are going to be banged up, and they're going to have to fight some of that stuff off the rest of the way. But, I mean, their offensive line's playing great. Their offensive line was great last year. Still got their number 1 running back, still got their number 1 quarterback, still have 2 options at quarterback, still have plenty of options to run the football. And at some point, they'll throw a couple passes in a game and hit like a play action touchdown for, 60 yards or something. But just the fact that they are able to run the ball with the effectiveness that they are against a high-powered offensive team who is very balanced, averages almost 500 yards or 450 yards a game.
Wow.
They were averaging, I think, 285 on the ground the first 2 games, or something close to that, something ridiculous in terms of, averaging a certain amount of yards and like 150 in the air. So, I mean, they're just a powerhouse in Ohio, and this team hung with them. And they're not. I don't mean they're one-dimensional in a negative way. They run the football.
Yeah, they don't.
It's a
they
running
don't need,
team.
They don't need to throw it. They threw it twice in each game.
They never seem like they're out of it, regardless of how their offense plays. I think they threw 1 pass in that game last week.
2 in each game. Yeah,
okay, so
and they
2
won
passes.
1 for 2 in each contest.
And they're still hanging with the team in terms of yardage, and they're still right in the game until the very end. I mean, that's remarkable what they've done with that team. And Wilmington's in it for the long haul. I mean, I'm going to beat my chest about that all season long. They are in it until Cumberland Valley in December.
Talk about their game coming up here after the break as well. That game will start at 7 o'clock, and it might be done by about 7:45.
Take the under on time.
I'm pretty sure the only team that may run it more frequently than Wilmington is Northern Bedford, who they're playing on Friday night. One final thought before we go into the break. One team and one team only remains undefeated in the county after 2 weeks of play, and that is the Laurel Spartans, and they find themselves in territory they haven't been in for 3 years.
Yeah, how about that? Ranked in the top 10 in the state, according to Penn Live. They're number 10 this week. Second Lawrence County team. Wilmington's in the top 10. They're number 6 this week again. They dropped down from 5 to 6, but they just jockey. The teams swap. Bishop Guilfoyle moved up in the top 5. But how about the first time since November 8th of 2022 that they've been in the state rankings conversation? That's pretty good.
That is pretty good. You don't want to tell them what happened on November 11th, but
you got to go back to November of 2022. They were top. They were honorable mention going into the Union playoff game, and they lost by 2. But and then fell out of the consideration for it. But Eric Epler's got his network of people that he talks to in the state. I won't mention who probably told him the good news about Laurel last weekend, but he's a good friend of mine for the last 30 years. So, I mean, we all trade information and stuff like that. But I told him on Friday night when I was leaving the game, I just said, you got to look long and hard at them. I said, if you need any help trying to figure out if they should be there, let me know. I'll go to bat for them. Put them there. Trust me, they seem like they're the favorite in the Big Seven. I don't think there's any problem in saying that right now. I mean, they've got the bullseye. I know they still got to play Neshannock. I know they still got to play Southside, and those are going to be tough games. But they're, to me, we haven't even scratched the surface of how good they can be. Yeah. They haven't even shown us like the full Laurel, and we've seen like half a Laurel or 75% of it maybe last week, and they're beating a team by 30 and scoring 30 unanswered points basically with defense and special teams last week. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah,
and they haven't even. I know Carlson had the big game against Elwood, but we haven't seen J.J. McBride take a game over. Faulkner did have a kick return, but hasn't done a ton offensively.
Colton Carlson made one catch and really didn't do anything else. He didn't need to do anything else last week.
Lucas Santini's thrown 24 passes in 2 games, or 28. He's 7 of 14 in both games. So, it's really, or 7 of 12, I guess he is in 2 games. Yeah. So both games. So we haven't even seen him have to like throw, 25, 30 times in a game. And I just, that team has something about it right now. And there's so many pieces on that field, much like a Wilmington with their running game, that they can just turn to any night of the week. They have a really special one in Carlson. They have a guy who I think can take a game over in Santini if he has to. And then, oh, by the way, here's 4 other guys that we can turn to offensively. Their defense is big. They are long. I was stunned to see them in person, like how long these guys are and their wingspan and their height. I mean, they just, for a single A school, if they had like 15 more kids on the roster, they'd be a preseason favorite.
Yeah.
And, everybody just kind of says, oh, okay, they're a favorite. They bring these guys back. You got to see these guys in person to kind of get a bigger feel for them. We'll see them again this week. And I just think that they have so many tools on this team that it's going to be really, really tough to stop them by anybody the rest of the way on their at least on the regular season schedule.
Yeah, their final non-conference tune-ups are at Riverside, and again, we'll be there on Friday night. Then they travel to Bishop Canevin before they get going with conference play, and believe that first conference game is against Rochester in a couple of weeks.
How important is that game where they've already shown that they can beat a team with defense and special teams? You might need those 2 facets against a Canevin.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get into like your regular season, your conference schedule. And I mean, Canevin's got to look at that and be like, what do we stop? Teams are going to start looking at this and go, well, we got to pressure the quarterback. We got to try to take Carlson away. Here's this McBride kid, or here's Faulkner, or here's, Jack Miles, or here's Ethan Miller or whatever. Like, they have so many weapons to go through for a single A school. It's not like a Clareton weapon with like Tyler Boyd and stuff like that, like a loaded team like that. But my God, do they have so many options they can turn to?
Does kind of remind me of like 10, 11, 12 years ago, like Freddie Moe's first couple of years at Neshannock. The same thing, like a lot of quality players, not necessarily one who can automatically take over the game, but you trust 7 or 8 of them to go and do it.
And
it's perfect.
About if they gave Colton Carlson like 10 carries in the first half, you may give a guy like a J.J. McBride like 4 carries, on a drive or something. You're not understanding how important those 4 carries are at that moment of the game where it's a fresh guy who hasn't carried the ball,
right,
and you're putting it in against a defense that you're starting to wear down, and then you bring another guy in who has 4 more carries on the next drive, and then another guy who has 4 more. And then, by the way, we'll hit Carlson again because now he's rested. It's unbelievable how they can just kind of rotate that whole thing right now.
It's been fun to watch them. Been fun to chat about everybody. Just 2 weeks into the year, we're winding up though. Week 2, Game 3. Almost got me saying it now. Here coming up on Friday. We'll preview all 6 games featuring county teams back when we return here in a moment. This is the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast on Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP.
Wherever you're going, Axe can get you there. The bowling alley, beauty salon, and even the library. Axe can get you there safely. The grocery store, pharmacy, and the bank. Axe can get you there comfortably. Going to work? visiting a friend, or just to relax at the park, Axe can get you there affordably. Axe is here to get you there, safely, comfortably, and affordably. Choose Axe as your driving service and give us a call to schedule a ride.
Like in sports, it takes a great team to protect you, your family, and your business. MVP Insurance is that team. From home and auto to life and commercial insurance, you can count on us for coverage that adapts to your needs.
We're committed to excellence for our clients' experience and in serving our community.
It's a winning combination.
MVP Insurance. Don't get left on the sidelines. Log on to mvpins.com or call today to get your free quote.
Your hip, your knee, your shoulder, whatever has been holding you back, UPMC Orthopedic Care is where you'll find experts to help you get back to a better quality of life. UPMC is pioneering minimally invasive surgeries, and we offer personalized treatment plans and same-day surgery to get you home and moving sooner. It's your ankle, your elbow, your hand, and it's your move. Visit upmc.com/ortho to learn how UPMC can help.
"48 hours from now, we're playing high school football again. Well, we hope. This is the week last year that not many games happened, Eric Thomas. We were about 10 miles away from each other. Game I was at lasted 4 minutes of game time before it was called off and was called off completely. Other games that went 4 plays and were called off to the next day. You got your full game in last year. Right now, knock on wood, weather looks good for Friday nights, but back to the warmth. It felt like October last week. It's going to feel like another early September, late August game coming up on Friday night here again. And hopefully teams are all preparing again. But after having a cool week, you got to be concerned about what the cramping situation will probably be looking like here on Friday night.
Yeah, it's supposed to be high 70s on Friday and partly cloudy. So we're getting a little cool weather tomorrow, and then if you're listening to us live, tomorrow being Thursday, and then on the podcast, obviously maybe today. But yeah, cold weather, cooler weather Thursday with rain, and then it's supposed to warm back up on Friday, so we should be good.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay.
Before we talk about the games in the county, do want to mention another game that's going on here somewhat locally. Farrell traveling to Ursuline, and some upsetting news going on with the Ursuline team. Apparently, there was a hazing incident that was just reported earlier this week with a lawsuit that's been put out by Ursuline or against the Ursuline football program. As of now, as of last we heard officially was just 3 hours ago, our friends at Sports Radio 96.7 saying that game currently still scheduled to be played, but just it's unfortunate. It really feels like, you get about a 2 or 3 year span, and then another one of these incidents pops up somewhere, and then you forget about it, and then another group comes in at some school and they take things way too far, and then it happens again somewhere. It's just it's unfortunate that it's this 3 to 4 year cycle. You always seem to be finding something like this. We got to find ways for this to go away. But I'm surprised the game is going on. But I wanted to mention just the fact of, are you kidding me? Here we go again.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that these kids just never seem to learn. I mean, they have such a big picture ahead of them, and then to kind of throw it all away like that.
One moment is all it takes, people. That's the point we're trying to drive home here.
And, we're in a society now where, and this is not a bad thing, maybe it is somewhat, but we're in a society now where people are not afraid to speak up and say that this stuff happened. If this was, I can tell you stories about when I was in high school that never made the light of day, that, nobody cares about anymore, but it was all just sort of like, it happened.
And
whatever,
kids have ways, and safe to say, and various methods that they are able to be heard, and thankful for that for sure.
Absolutely, and it's a different world now, and social media and things like that we didn't have. I'm 45, so we didn't have that stuff when I was a kid, and or a teenager or a high school student, and the world was a better place when we didn't have it. I know it serves its purpose, and we use it for good things like promoting our games, and hell, we put our games on social media. But
you might be watching us right now on social media.
So it does serve its purpose, and it's a good thing, and it can be a good news outlet if you kind of block all the junk out. But for the most part, it's garbage.
Yeah.
And these kids, they see things on there. It's readily accessible to them, and their kids are being put in a different position these days than they were 20, 30 years ago. And it's not a better position. And that's where parents still have to, kind of have their finger on the pulse of stuff and understand like what their kids are going through and be receptive and talk to them and give them an outlet and everything. And just unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad we're in a situation now where it's a lot easier for kids to report these things and get these things out than it was years ago. Because years ago, this just gets swept under the rug. Nobody hears about it, and then it's after the fact. And
right. And you hope that with social media too, that these kids are able to see like, oh wow, this is happening. Whether it's 30 miles away into Ohio or whether it's across the country, that you're still able to figure it out. But I like what you said about social media. As long as you can filter out the from what's on your feed, then everything's great.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's
we can't get fined, so I think we can say it. I don't know if we want to, but we can say it though.
Oh, okay. So I'll
There you go.
Oh, that felt good. Anyway, Friday night coming up. Let's talk about there are 6 games going on in the county coming up on Friday. Let's start with the non-region game for District 10. We just got done talking about the Wilmington Greyhounds. They're traveling to northern Bedford County, and kind of gave a little teaser before the break that these might be the 2 most run-heavy teams, maybe in the entire state of Pennsylvania. But that game legitimately could be over by like 8:15, 8:30 without much question.
It might be, and Wilmington's going to have to contend with Ben Clark, who's had some pretty monster games here the first 2 weeks. How about the fact that Northern Bedford's only lost their first 2 games by a combined 9 points? So they're going to hang around and hang around and hang around.
And what were those scores, like 17-14? And like,
very close games.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, by 9 points total. They got tiger blood, so to speak, and it's their or alligator blood, I guess is the quote from the movie. But it's going to be tough. Like if you're Wilmington, you got to put them away because they will hang around. And they'll control the pace, much like you. Wilmington's, this is the kind of game where, to me, if you win the toss, you take the ball if you're Wilmington, and you go on like a 16-minute drive.
Yeah.
And just try to eat up like 16 of the first 24.
Because that's exactly what the other team's going to do on the other side. These teams are going to have maybe 4 or 5 possessions at the most for each team. Yeah, scoring early might be crucial.
Good test for your defense, too, if you're Wilmington. And Brendan Fillion, I think, is going to have his work cut out for him. Big games probably coming for Chase Mitchell-Tree. This is a good feature game for 2 of the top runners that you're going to see go head-to-head. And a good test for Wilmington. I like the fact that they get tested like this coming off a game against a really good team a week ago. And I still think they're going to be the favorite in just about every game they play the rest of the way. But you kind of like to see how your team responds to a tough loss like that by playing a pretty good opponent that really wants to do the same thing you do. And they're going to be across from you for 48 minutes. You got to figure out how to try to stop yourself, basically.
And I do like as well the fact of the matter being that you now have 3 games in a row. I'm going to be saying it for the next 3 weeks. Come playoff time, you got to get on a bus. You got to go take care of business, going through that whole routine. They got 3 road trips, and I'm talking road trips here in the next 3 weeks with Northern Bedford County just being the first one on the docket. The other ones...
That's a pain of a trip for me to get to from the South Hills.
Yeah.
Going to Bedford for the Turnpike exit, that's usually my stop on the way back to the hometown of Harrisburg. But, that's not from the corner of the state where they're at, like up here. That is a rough. I mean, what time do you leave school? Like noon?
Yeah, I was trying to get my app does not want to open for maps. I wanted to see how long it actually would take. You're probably right. You probably get out of school at noon, drive down, get down towards Johnstown, and then at that point maybe go and have dinner and all that. But this is the first of 3 in a row, like I said though, because they then travel to Berlin Brothers Valley. And then
all the way out like in the District 5.
Yeah.
Like, that's like in the Maryland corner, kind of like down there's actually, and I found this out during state basketball, Berlin Brothers Valley has, I believe, the like the Altoona Mirror covers them a little bit. Their hometown paper is actually a paper in Maryland.
No way.
Because it's closer to them than what any paper in Pennsylvania is.
Well, I mean, a lot of Mercer County, their TV coverage normally comes from WFMJ out in Ohio. Yep. So, I mean, we get that for sure. Oh, and then they travel into Ohio, Wilmington does, to take on Grand Valley for a third road trip. So you got to get used to getting on the road there, I guess. But Yeah, get there early is, I guess, the best way to put it. The next game, first off, that game can be watched on the NFHS network, the only place you can catch that game between the Panthers and the Hounds. Same story for Newcastle traveling to Highlands, available to watch on NFHS network. We kind of alluded to it. Both teams are 1-1. Won the first week, lost the second week. This is a rebound central for both the Rams and the Canes.
Yeah, and I want to see defense from Newcastle in this game. They got to deal with a really tough quarterback in Ryan Messina, who has just been lights out, or rather Highlands had to deal with him last week. So they're kind of adjusted to playing like the top-notch quarterback already this season. They were only 15 yards in the second half against Elizabeth Forward last week, Highlands. So they're going to be looking to bounce back. This is the perfect opportunity for Newcastle's defense to get right in this game. And, big game maybe from like a Jaden Schaefer or somebody on that defensive front. Kai Cox come up with a big play offensively. Let's start seeing some consistency with the offense. Let's maintain some drives. Let's mix in some runs. Let's get some passing. Let's actually start to piece this now that we've had 2 weeks. Let's start making week 3 like where we start putting the puzzle completely together here for this Newcastle team. But this is a game where they've got to be foaming at the mouth right now because this, again, Highlands team only had 15 yards in the second half last week, and they were shredded by Messina and E Forward. So this is the perfect opportunity. If they're going to struggle on offense, Newcastle, or at least struggling to find some explosiveness or flash is now the big phrase everybody uses, defense is going to have to win the game. And we already know that a good defense can beat this Highlands team because we saw it last week when they lost. So go out there defensive-minded, try to shut them down, and just get your guys a couple extra possessions and a couple of shorter fields and let them get some confidence and start to again, kind of fit those pieces in the puzzle here offensively because they got to start showing some consistency across the board, especially these next 3 games with the 3 after that are looming.
Yeah, and again, we talked about the fact that they are improving.
They look like they're going to break out.
Yeah,
they look like they're going to break out. They just need to do it.
Yeah, don't stop the shooting yourself in the foot, basically, and don't get a couple first downs and then a false start type thing. You can avoid that, and you'll be great.
You could tell in that first game against Penn Hills, they were just itching to have 4 or 5 monster plays. Now, instead, what happens is they go on a really good drive in the third quarter, and they get a touchdown that basically puts the game away, even though it was 12-0. But their defense was so good in that game. But you could see it. That whole game, it's like, man, they just want to hit like 1 or 2 big ones and show the Whippeal and 4A what they can put together as an offense behind this young kid under center. Maybe this is the week. I don't know. But I do know this. Like the way that they start to get out of this and piece together wins, their defense has to fire in this game. And if they do, I think they can get more than enough offense to win the game. Even if they just get enough once again for a third week, if their defense is playing like it did week 1 or week 0, then they're going to be fine in this game.
Union, one of the few home games for anybody in the county here this week, hosting Washington, team that is ranked for sure in the WPIL in Class 2A. And I believe, are they on the teams to watch list for state rankings? They might be, but
I think they were last week, but losing to Steel Valley is going to hurt a little bit.
Yeah, that'll hurt, but it was a close game, 21-6 against a talented Steel Valley team. You have a kid, the quarterback, Tristan Reed, is going to be going to Miami of Ohio. He'll be playing receiver there. He's not going to be Big Ben Jr. or anything like that, but they're going to have they always do, such a huge line with the little Prexies. They should be called the Big Prexies with how big their offensive line always seems to be. What is it you want to see most from Coach Nee's team here? Again, a little banged up from the first week of the year, obviously needing to improve upon a week 1 game that they only had about 60 yards of total offense.
Fight. Just
fight start to finish.
Start to finish, be in it the whole way and give yourself a chance, near or at the end of the game to win it. And if they do that, then I think I'll feel a little bit better about them going forward. This Washington team a week ago really should have beaten Steel Valley. I mean, they had a chance to go ahead in that game or at least tie that game. I think it was in the second half. It might have been early fourth quarter where they got the ball at the 45-yard line, and then they gave it right back on a turnover. And then Steel Valley, of course, Deron Barksdale goes on and what he normally does, and they end up putting the game away with his 3rd touchdown. But, they were right in that game the whole way through and had a chance to tie that thing. And if they tie it, who knows?
Right.
Maybe their defense forces a 3-and-out or forces a short possession, gets it back and they go down the field and win the game. And if they did that, we'd be talking about a different situation this week. Union just has to be, they got to be in it for 48 minutes. They got to throw haymakers. You need to start finding an identity. You know, it's another one of these games where is it ultimately going to determine where they go if they get in the postseason? No, but at the same time, I know it's a short roster, but just you got to dig deep and you got to fight and you got to, if this season is going to kind of go the way that last did and they, you know, maybe they get hot late and they kind of show like they bat their eyes a little bit at the playoffs, they've got to have a couple of defining games for this program. This is a really tough spot to be in, I think, if you're Union, because you had so much success for 2 years. You go to a state final, you're one of the favorites to get back to a district final, and then all of a sudden everybody graduates, and now you got to kind of rebuild this program from the ground up. And there's pieces there. Oh, yeah. There's definitely pieces there. But what this team has to do is this team has to be the blueprint for what happens in the future. If they can get more kids to come out, if they can expand on a 34-guy roster, maybe push 40, maybe generate some more interest in the program. But you do that if you're in the fight all the time. If you're playing with a lot of pride and you want to hang in these games and win these games. So win or lose, there's a lot to accomplish in this game. I mean, there really is. But they got to be, you know, bell to bell, 48 minutes. It's let's go and see what we can do for 48 minutes.
That game will be available on the Union YouTube page to watch. Big thanks to everybody at Union. We love partnering with them for our broadcast as well, but you can check that out. Just search Union Scotties on YouTube. The last game we want to cover here before we got to take one more quick break, Neshannock, Elwood City, another county versus county matchup. You'll be able to watch this one on Elwood City Sports Net down at Helling Stadium. This was a great battle last year, a back and forth game, fighting each other and the raindrops the entire way. But a big time different story. Lots of pieces back, obviously, for Neshannock. Elwood, as we've said numerous times, obviously a big time revamping of their starting lineup, but they got some momentum after a great defensive performance and just controlling the clock and playing Elwood City football.
Yeah, and they got to feel good about where they're at right now, but this is a Neshannock offense that's going to put them on their heels or try to most of the game, so they got to be very careful as far as, trying to get into a shootout with them or not let anything happen early in this game. Again, consistency. This is an Elwood City team that, I feel a little bit better about them after last week. I know that it was Shenango, and I know Shenango's got some struggles right now, but just they got demoralized against Laurel, and then they come back last week, the next game, and they play like they did, where they're consistent, they're moving the ball, they're scoring touchdowns, they're running the ball very well, they're getting a ground game established with a handful of guys. Going to have to do that again, and this Neshannock defense, I think, is going to try to start teeing off on Smiley, and I think they want revenge for last year, no question. And I think Neshannock's going to look to hit some big plays. This is not the kind of game where if Elwood City gives up like a 70-yard touchdown, if they don't come right down the field and score again, and Neshannock gets the ball back and they go up 14-0, that's going to be a lot of trouble. But I do feel more confident in Elwood City than I was going into week 0. Yeah. A lot of questions going in that game against Laurel. And then watching it, it was like, wow, are they really rebuilding, or is Laurel that good? And then we find out last week that Laurel is that good. So I feel a little bit better about that loss. Right. And then I feel even better about them after beating Shenango last week the way they did. So I think that there's a lot to be comfortable with right now if you're Elwood City. You're going to take lumps. And if you're Neshannock, you just got to keep in that rhythm. And you just do the big plays, defense, all of it. Just stay in that rhythm that you have from last week.
Shout out Anthony Aiken, 3 interceptions last week. I think defense is going to be key for Neshannock all year long, and also definitely for Elwood City.
They got to prove they can stop people.
Declan O'Brien arguably could have been considered for Conference Player of the Year on defense, and he didn't even make the all-conference team with the numbers that he had and with that how important he was to that defense a year ago. He's going to be even more crucial the rest of this year, and he's off to a good start. Had a sack and a turnover so far defensively this year. We're going to take one more quick break. We'll come back and we will talk about the 2 games we'll be covering coming up on Friday night. That's Laurel at Riverside, as well as Shenango traveling to Bessemer to take on Mohawk. Back in a minute. We return shortly on Beyond the Scoreboard podcast at lcsportsnet.com. For 20 years, Melee Chiropractic has treated athletes of all ages to help them get safely back to the top of their game. Melee Chiropractic has 3 full-time doctors in their office, and all 3 are former area athletes who have had to battle injuries throughout their careers. They want to help you get safely back on your feet. But more importantly, help stop the injuries before they happen. Prehab before you rehab. Attention all high school student athletes. During your sports season, a $30 visit to the Melee Chiropractic office includes an adjustment and/or all therapy is necessary. From the athletes of tomorrow to the weekend warriors and everything in between. Let Melee Chiropractic keep you in the game. Castle Asphalt and Construction is driven to provide quality, cost-efficient pavement-related services to Western Pennsylvania. Every paving or construction service at Castle Asphalt begins with a thorough site inspection of the area to allow their team of professionals to become familiar with the unique conditions of your home or business. Once the site inspection is complete, Castle Asphalt provides you with a detailed plan of the design, cost, materials, and time of completion, so you know exactly what to expect during your construction. Visit castleasphalt.com to request a quote for your next project and make your dream design come to fruition.
I love what I do because coming in every day is different.
How can you not enjoy these kids coming up and hugging you and giving you these great smiles all throughout the day?
Seeing the progress that our kids make every single day is one of the reasons I love coming to school.
What should we do? We have fun.
LCAP Early Learning Centers is hiring. Help empower young minds in Lawrence County and become a superhero today. Apply at lcap.org.
Coming up on Friday, again, we will have our 2 broadcasts. Laurel traveling to Riverside. Big thanks to everyone at Riverside allowing us to come down for our biggest, well, it's not the biggest road trip in the world, but it is going outside the county for the first time on the season. And Mohawk hosting Shenango. Your Castle Asphalt pregame show will begin at 6:30 for both of those games, with kickoff coming at 7 o'clock. Let's talk about those 2 games real quick, Eric. Start with the one that I'll be attending, the Shenango at Mohawk game. Beautiful Bessemer, Pennsylvania. It is homecoming for the Warriors, an early homecoming here in this one. And tell you what, they're going to be glad to be going back home after last week and trying to get back to Warrior football, because there were, even in the first week victory, there were a lot of things that Coach McCutcheon was very pointed about, like, hey, we need to clean this up. Last week, that first touchdown drive right down the field, 80 yards, said the same thing. Even on that drive, there was a lot that just didn't go right, and it kind of spiraled the rest of the game. So he's looking for more out of his team, even when they're doing things well, and they're coming off a week where a lot didn't go right. So they're going to be out for blood to right the ship pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, and there's still some question marks I have about this Mohawk team, more so after last week. I said it early on that they were going to make a run of the 2A WPIL title game. I'm still going to stand on that. Until somebody, beats them in the playoffs and eliminates them, I'm standing on that the rest of the season. But, defensive end, where's the pressure coming from on the quarterback, the opposing quarterback? The linebacking core is going to take a hit without Cash Stratton in there this week. So who's going to step into his place? I think it's going to be easier to replace him offensively than it is defensively. They can put Lucas Stratton there, and he can make some things happen easier, much easier for him to just, Tim McCutcheon and company just go, hey, here's the ball, run, as opposed to read this guy or drop in this coverage or whatever. So really curious to see how the linebacking core rounds out without Stratton. He's not going to play. And then what's the offense as a whole look like? Does Fadden run more? Do they have another option and get the ball to?
Joey Neal ran it a bit last year. I wonder if you'll see him maybe back at running back at times.
And can they throw with consistency? Yeah. They could do nothing last week against Laurel's secondary. I mean, Fadden was, he was rushed. He was throwing, making high throws, trying to feed the ball into certain areas, and the secondary and linebackers all over the place. Don't think they're going to face that kind of defense this week. So I do think that Mohawk will get right in this game, and they'll show some of their potential here. but they cannot get into a situation, and I actually wrote this down, they can't get into a situation where they're going to start chasing wins. So if they come off a loss, they got to win the next game. Then they got to win the game after that. They can't, having to chase or make up one somewhere along the line is going to eventually catch up to them. And I think that was their problem a little too much last year. They would have a good performance and go out and not have a great one. Then they would go out and have an okay one and maybe win a game, and then they wouldn't have a good one. It was just too much back and forth all season last year where they just never felt like they were going to be a team like we saw the year before, where they might have had, they really had a reasonable chance to get to a WPIL championship that year with Ronan when he was a senior. They have got to start checking some boxes here.
Yeah.
Let's see them fill some of these gaps and get some depth, with running the football and stuff like that. Let's develop a depth chart at the running back position, and let's get Bobby Fadden, let's get him off the rails good again. It's on him now. Yeah. It's on him until Stratton shows he can come back and play.
Talk about that real quick, though. Obviously, one of your leaders, a junior captain on your team, goes down with an injury. It's demoralizing. It really takes the winds out of your sails to see a player go down, especially a player that means that much to you. But then think about his younger brother is the one who has to come in only his second ever varsity game, and all of a sudden now he's the one who's going to be asked to do it. What's got to be going through that young man's head in that game?
They were in a position in the last 2 years where if Boston got hurt, Sam List could be your guy. And Stratton was a freshman on that team, and he did get some carries that season, not in the biggest of games, but he got enough that you knew that he was going to be really good.
And especially down the stretch because Sam did get hurt and Cash was number 2.
And then last year you had List, who was the main ball carrier, but Stratton had 400, almost 500 yards, and Fadden was, shouldering the load. When you're going from not having those other 2 guys, or not having those other, especially 2 years ago with the 2 guys, but not having that other guy that's right next to you is the 1A ball carrier, and you got to turn to your younger brother who's then got to go in the game. That's tough. I really think that they have to prove that they can develop some depth there and go forward. And again, I go back to the point that I made earlier in the show. If you don't think that this is a run-first team, look at their offense after he got hurt last week. Yeah. They still have their best offensive player on the field in their quarterback, and the focus of their offense, probably the best athlete to ever come out of the school, period, on the field for them. And because they didn't have the running back, they could not do anything offensively. If that does not tell you how much they lean on that run game, whether, I don't care if Fadden throws for 5,000 yards the next 8 weeks, they still need to have a running game. And if they don't, they're probably not going to get to Acrisure Stadium. I almost said Heinz. They're probably not going to get to Acrisure. Simple as that. They have to run the football. So now they got to develop some depth with it.
And it might take some time to get into a new running game if Stratton does have to miss a couple of weeks too. Again, go back to what Laurel was last year. You lose your the bell cow you're expecting to lean upon. You got to find
run the triple option.
You got to find new ways to do it.
Just go Army and run the triple option.
Sounds good to me.
Anybody can. 3 yards a carry. You're fine.
Look, you want to talk about how much and how important a running back is? Look at McKeesport last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Arguably the best running back in the state of Pennsylvania.
In the country, potentially.
And he is out for a game, and they got the doors blown off of them last week. Yeah. That was after an epic performance in week 1 in the biggest spotlight in the WPIL that weekend, and he just not being there, and they were a complete non-factor last week. That's amazing how that script flipped on them.
Talk about non-factors. Unfortunately, Shenango's offense has been a non-factor through the first 2 games. What do they need to focus on to get Nico DeSalvo and company up and running offense? Because defense hasn't been terrible, to be honest.
Yeah, their D's it's kept him in every game, and I think that the growing pains for him is just he's got to take the lumps. I use the analogy with somebody the other week about something else. The best way to learn how to golf is just go play. You just got to go out there and shoot 110 and then try to get down under 100 and try to get down under 90. And I know that the clock ticks pretty quickly on the football season, but, for Nico DeSalvo, maybe it takes one 50-yard pass for a touchdown or something, and all of a sudden it just clicks, and then he's good the rest of the way. I think Shenango's in too big of a hole, to be honest with you, and I'm not – it's very tough to say this because I got so much respect for that program. Probably be there in a couple weeks to do a game. I'm looking forward to it, and I empathize with everything they went through last year, and it breaks my heart that they had to go through that. But I don't know where they're going to win a game, and I hate to say that right now. So here's what I would say: prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that you can go win a game, because I looked up and down their schedule, And I know they have who's Northgate, I think is
that's 2 weeks from now. Yep.
Yeah, potentially, and then Summit at the end of the season, who they probably should beat. I don't know if I see another one somewhere else. Now, if they play better on Friday and they lose the game like 14-7 or 21-14 and it's low scoring, you can trust their defense. You know that their offense has the ability or shows more ability to stay in that game. I'll feel a little bit better about things going forward. It's going to be tough for them right now. They just need their quarterback has to play with confidence. Their running game, they got to hit a home run play somewhere.
Yeah, that's all it takes. You get one little play like that because they have the athletes. I mean, you have a Trey Ross, you have AJ Farilla, a beast.
Good players.
Saw a little bit of Caleb McConnell at the end of the game too. I mean, he's booting balls out of the end zone. You may get all touchbacks, by the way, on any kickoffs on Friday night too. But that's what I mean, though, is that you have the athletes. You just got to find the way to get them in space, get a little confidence, and that's all it can take.
Don't be afraid to tinker with guys in different positions too, and just see what they can do for you.
You're still trying to figure out what they're going to do, right?
It's like they got to kind of figure out the pieces to the puzzle here. You can't replace Sam Patton and just expect that you're going to be a playoff team. It doesn't work that way. That might work that way at the Division I college level. It doesn't work that way at the high school level, unless
Especially
you're
at
Central
1A.
Catholic and get whoever you want.
Especially at 1A football too, because you're right. Because an AJ Farilla was a big time running back. He's more needed as a tight end this year. You had, Jacob Kammerer is an absolute beast on the line. 20 tackles in the first number. He was a ball carrier for the first 2 years of his career. They're going to be moving around, and one little injury can move everybody out to a new position. But here's the thing about Shenango, because each of the last 5 years, even in the years that they have not had good teams, it's almost like Pitt football, where just out of nowhere they pull off a game where they beat a team that they shouldn't have beaten, or they're right there to the very end against a team that they have no business being with. That's the culture that they have, that they feel and they know every game, we have a chance. And it was Southside a couple of years ago that they actually lined up for a 40-yard field goal, and time expired as they were spiking the ball before they could get the field goal attempt out there. And that was a Southside team that I didn't think ended up going all the way to Acrisure that season, and Shenango probably should have beaten them. That's the kind of mentality that Coach Graham and his staff has always put together. Throw Landon Albertini in there real quick too. Hasn't played in 2.5 years. He's still probably getting his legs back under him. They'll be fine. They just got to, again, keep getting better week after week after week.
And play with a little bit of confidence. And you play with confidence by, hitting the flashy plays and showing people that you can do it, and listening to your crowd get behind you, and you get the attaboy from the guys on the sideline. I know that they don't have the biggest roster either, but they do have some dudes on that team, and if their defense can keep them in a game, and their defense can keep them in a game where Mohawk is going to be handcuffed because they don't have Stratton. So that might be one to keep a little bit of an eye on Friday night, just because you never know how Mohawk's going to react. That had to be a gut punch to have that happen to you, because you plan for that kind of stuff. Every week, you have to expect somewhere along the line some guy's going to get an injury that takes him out for a couple plays or whatever. You can't expect it to just rattle your offense like it did Mohawk. So maybe Shenango sees that and they can exploit something with it, and I hope they do, because I want that team to start piecing some wins together. Those kids deserve it. They've been through way too much, and that program's been through way too much, and they need some good karma to come their way.
Finally, the game, Eric will be joined. By the way, it's Lee Moan, unfortunately, joining me at Mohawk. Did I say that? I'm sorry. Lee Moan will be at the game at Mohawk. Down at Riverside, Eric Thomas joined with Tim Continenza for the Laurel at Riverside game. And Riverside able to hang on last week in a win against Northgate. Aiden Gagos, their quarterback, putting up some almost fantasy video game style numbers in that win. He's going to be the main guy that Laurel's going to have to look to stop.
Yeah, they played pretty well last week, and also faced a mobile quarterback in that game too. And he was good in last week's 7 of 12 passing in that game, 60 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Much like we saw with Laurel, they have a couple different guys they can turn to. Mason Hollers played really well too. He was a little banged up early in the game. And it looked like he came back and he was fine because he had 88 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns in the third, yeah.
Yeah, but he had left the game early, like first quarter, and kind of hobbled off, but looked like he was fine. They do have some good pieces there. I just think that Laurel right now, seems to me like the type of team that isn't going to get phased by whatever success they have too. And that's a really dangerous thing, because a sport and an age range where everything snowballs. Like if you're feeling miserable about yourself, you feel miserable about yourself till the world ends. Like it's, you know, you sometimes you just can't get out of the funk. And this team just doesn't seem like they're going to buy into their own, you know, they're not going to smell their own aroma, so to speak. So I don't know. This game to me can go a couple different ways. Laurel's going to be bound to be in a struggle somewhere. They're not going to blow everybody out all season long. I think we know that. But I also, from a Riverside perspective, would worry because we ain't seen the best Laurel team yet.
Right.
And they've looked really good the first 2 weeks. That's a scary thought.
I think it's also a scary thought that this is a game that Laurel flat out says, we let this one get away. They lost 9-7. They had 2 chances at the game-winning field goal in the last 2 or 3 minutes. Both, I think, were under 30 yards, and they both ended up being they got
a kicker now, so
well, that's what I mean. My Jarrett missed the one, and Tony Guyowitz missed one last year. Guess what? He didn't miss last week, that's for sure, with the 39-yarder. But both of them have really improved in the kicking game. I don't think it's going to come down to the kicking game. I think you're going to see a couple of big plays made early, and I also think, Riverside's going to hit a couple, and I'm anxious to see the response that Laurel has to come up with after giving up a big play the other way, because Riverside has some playmakers. They can't rely upon their defense like they did a year ago.
That Riverside team last week played with a lot more confidence, I thought, than what they did against Hopewell too. I mean, it's easy to not play with confidence when you get beat 56-0 in your first game. But they were fired up early in that game last week. They were hitting guys. They were, kind of showing a lot of emotion in that game. And I think that team just really needed to. They were pissed. They were upset that they lost that first game by 56. That Hopewell team we know is pretty good after what we saw last week. But, they came back the way that they were supposed to come back, had to hang on. Mobile quarterback, again, that presented some problems to them. And they're not going to see the mobility. Santini can move, but not like the Northgate kid can. So that's going to be a contrasting style thing. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. Probably somebody we don't expect to be the key player in the game. It's always easy to pick the quarterback to do that. I'm going to go back to what we talked about beginning of the show with the Mohawk game, and I think Nathan Hill has a big game. I think he's your key from a player perspective, simply because they've increased his workload a little bit every week. He's looked better both weeks. This is the kind of game where if he goes out there and gives them 15 carries and 80 yards, and looks comfortable doing it, they're probably going to win the game. And I think he's a big key in this game on Friday.
Very quietly on pace for 20 touchdowns this year.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And he might only have like 500 yards rushing.
Oh, I don't even think it's that.
No, I mean like total for the year. Like
for
he
the
might
year.
be on pace to only have like 500 yards rushing. So like that would be a ridiculous stat
63
line.
times 5. Yeah, he's on pace for about 300.
Yeah, so there you go. So I think this is the kind of game where he, there might be like an exchange of touchdowns early in this game, and then when Laurel settles in, their defense, they can turn the ball over to their defense and try to win a game. Their offense has to feel like it can win a game. And we know their special teams showed last week they can win a game too. So,
yeah, you said it's going to be a player you're not ready for.
Yeah.
You had Tony Guyowitz and you had Braden Faulkner getting things done. And you had a game that essentially, again, Carlson had 1 catch. Jack Miles didn't need to do anything.
Yeah,
Lucas
so who is it
Santini
this
just sits
week?
there.
I'll pick Nathan Hill this week. I think he has a big game.
I'll throw my money on Josh Sherman. He made a catch last week, came in late as a quarterback and ran one in. I think you're going to see more of him involved in the offense too. And I think that's also what's most impressive is that when they've had these quality teams, including that team from 2022, they've never had like just the pure outside receiver. Carlson, yes, is listed as a receiver, but he lines up.
He's versatile.
He's a slot. He's in the backfield. He's everywhere. In those seasons, you've had the true X and Y receivers on the outside that would have maybe 5 or 6 catches all year. You have some quality guys that are rotating in and out, between Mason Moser and Josh Sherman, and McBride's out there at times, Guyowitz is out there at times, that I think all can go and do some special things. So I think we're going to be potentially handing out lots of different shirts to lots of different players, and that's going to be the key not only for their regular season success, but for them to possibly make an Acrisure run. Variety, and when a team has this much experience all over the field coming back, I mean that's it right in a nutshell. Is that you have to have everybody involved, everybody being able to move in and move out. That's how you withstand injuries and all that sort of thing too. To be able to next man up mentality.
Quietly too, and this is what has really impressed me in the first 2 weeks. we've said it about like guys like Jack Miles and stuff like that. Tyler Fuchs, and we've called his name out a few times. We did last week. How about 4 tackles for loss already? I mean, he is playing some really good football early in this season, and it's almost because this team has just done it in so many different ways. It's almost gone unnoticed, and that's what I'm saying. We haven't seen the best of this team yet. It's scary that this team has not had to just go, nope, this is everything we have in one game right here. That's probably coming somewhere down the line, maybe in some of these bigger games down the stretch. But, the other thing, their offensive line's good. I talked about their size earlier. I'm not talking about girth. I'm talking about their height. They're a matchup problem in the secondary. The receivers are a matchup problem. They got a lot of tools for a 1A team. It is going to be fun, being with them for a chunk of the season and seeing what this team can do in some of these bigger games. There are some monster games coming up in that Big 7, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Single A, 5A, 2 best classes, I think, in the WPIL. Single A is so good top to bottom. I mean, we're talking about Fort Cherry. We're talking about Clareton. I know Wilmington's a Lawrence County team, so, we have them, but they're good. Laurel, Neshannock is going to be good the rest of the way. I mean, there's just so much talent and depth in terms of quality of teams in Single A. It's almost like within these conferences, we're getting a tournament before the tournament.
Yeah, and thankfully that we do have an expanded tournament, that you do have a few more that are making it into the dance, because it can be like, well, especially, look at 1A the last few years. Union, a 10 seed, WPL champions. Beaver Falls the following year, a 10 seed, WPL champions. I mean, you're going to have, in these lower classifications, you're going to have these kind of games and these kind of teams coming out of nowhere, getting strong at the right time, and that's why I'm glad that we have a 12 to 16 team field and not like Class 4A when only 8 have to make it in, but that's the way the PIAA system works. So again, the Castle Asphalt pregame show will begin at 6:30 on Friday night, and then you'll tune in either for Laurel at Riverside or Shenango at Mohawk, and we'll have links on our social media page, both Facebook and Twitter, with links to be able to watch all the games coming up on Friday night. Before we talk about some fun things coming up here as we wrap up the show, Eric, NFL begins tomorrow. Do we have a Super Bowl preview prediction for Mr. Eric Thomas?
Yeah, I said on another show earlier in the summer, I said Rams and Ravens. I will amend that only because I'm not sure what Matthew Stafford's going to be like all season long. I really like the Rams' addition of Devontae Adams, and I also thought that last year, I thought their defense was fantastic last year. It's a kind of a weak division with the Niners, and they're sort of on the downward of things. I think Seattle can be pretty good this year. I'm going to keep the Ravens in there in the AFC and NFC. It's Phillies to lose probably until somebody beats them. I think that there's 2 things to keep an eye on the NFC. Number one, I don't know that Detroit's going to have the kind of year that they've been having. I think there's too much. There's been a couple subtractions from there. Aiden Hutchinson, we need to know if he's 100% still. I think Tampa is going to be really good.
They can be. They're a sneaky team.
I mean, that's a horrible division with 3 of the worst starting quarterbacks opposite of them. Their defense is really good. Baker Mayfield had, arguably an all-pro type season last year. I think they could be good. I don't know that they're good enough to get into the Super Bowl. I think they could maybe push somebody out of the way and get to the NFC title game. I guess I probably got to stay Philly, and I'm going to, until somebody beats them, and then I'll make sure I keep Baltimore in my it's the unfortunate thing is I've already done some things with the Rams and Ravens matchup that I can't take back now. However, I would probably amend that just because Stafford's injury is too much. I'll say Eagles-Ravens.
I can't argue with anything that you said. I'm going to give my prediction as the It's About Time Bowl. I think Detroit, because they get Hutchinson back, will be the difference to overcome some of the losses, including coordinator losses that they have. They've been right there. They still have most of their, especially offensive pieces. And
yeah, but how good's Jared Goff going to be this year? Though that's kind of a I don't know. Yeah. That guy's been on sort of a high the last 2 years, and then somewhere he's going to struggle.
Yeah. It wouldn't, again, it wouldn't surprise me if it does. I'm going to give him one more shot at it, and I think their opponent is going to be another. It's about time.
Buffalo.
Josh Allen's finally going to get to that level they need to.
I can't see. It's to me the AFC is between the Bills, Ravens, and Bengals. I don't think the Chiefs are. I mean, they're going to be a factor, but I wouldn't be stunned if Denver wins that division.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, I wouldn't be stunned if Friday night the Chiefs lose to San Diego on the road to start the season. So
who's your survivor pick for week 1 then?
I did not make that yet. I am probably going to take Philly tomorrow night.
Me too.
Though.
Yep. I think that's there it is, folks. Mark it down, because next week we'll probably be saying, well, we're already out.
And there's no better time to
1.
take them. There would be no better time to take them. I mean, that's like a lock tomorrow night. Come on, that place is going to be juiced up. They're going to raise a banner
against Dallas,
against the Micah Parsons-less Dallas team. You know, that's the time to pick them.
For the record, the Green Bay Packers fan over here did not pick Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl. Just keep that in mind.
And I'll tell you why.
Good for him.
I do think that they will be there in the next couple of years, because I think Micah does make that big of a difference. There's just too many questions about their secondary. And, I mean, their number 1 corner is with the Ravens now. Jai Alexander. Keyshawn Nixon has improved. He can be a number 1. They still got to figure out some offensive line things, too. And, I mean, Micah, listen, the kid went to my high school. I covered him. I broadcasted his games on the radio when he was at Central Dauphin. I've known his family forever. I'm over the moon that he is a Green Bay Packer. I wanted that to happen in the draft, and, you know, Dallas ended up plucking him. So, I want the kid to succeed in the worst way. He's the best defensive player in the league in my mind. I don't care what anybody says about his playoff games and all that. You know, Aaron Judge doesn't produce in the playoffs either. The guy's still the best baseball player on the planet, so it doesn't matter. You could maybe argue Shohei is too, but you know, it's, to me, they just have too many things to check off for this year, and their receiver room is not. I need to see those guys kind of play together for a year and then figure that out. No Christian Watts until week 6. Romeo Dobbs is hurt too much. Matthew Golden could be great. They don't have a proven guy in Dontavian Wicks or anybody behind that. So I do think if you are a Steelers fan, I think you will win 10 games. I think you could be a big factor in the AFC too. I don't know that Rodgers is the reason why. I think maybe DK Metcalf might be a reason why, and I think their defense is a reason why. But
yeah,
I mean, they're arguably 3 teams in the AFC North that make the playoffs. I mean, the Bills, the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers
could all very easily make it.
Yeah, and somebody's, you know, again, like somebody has to get knocked out between Denver and KC somewhere, or somebody has to get knocked out. Jacksonville could be a sneaky good team, but the South stinks, so you would assume Houston wins that. And, you know, I don't know. Somewhere somebody gets picked off. I wouldn't be stunned if the Steelers can get a home playoff game in the wild card, win that game, and go on the road and scare somebody.
Unfortunately, 9-8 might still make the playoffs too, the way the rest of the AFC looks.
That's pretty good for Mike Tomlin.
Right,
that's about average.
That's the system.
That's par for the course.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Par for the course. I've never hit par on a course anywhere close, and hopefully we get a couple more times on the course before the summer comes to an end. Our time here has come to an end, though. Big thanks again, Eric Thomas, for joining us each and every week. More fun coming up in the following weeks. We have the beginning of volleyball coverage coming up, and soccer as well in the next week or two, with the beginning of some regular season matches with county schools. We will also be covering the golf sectionals coming up on September the 16th as teams or individuals, trying to qualify for the WPIALs. Also intending to be covering the cross-country championships a month from today in the beginning of October there at Shenango High School, Floyd Montgomery track for that one. So lots of fun stuff coming up. This Friday, again, 2 games coming up. Next week, we'll have 3 games, including Thursday night football.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be Union hosting Riverside. It's going to be jam-packed. That's going to be a fun night there for sure as well. Lots of fun stuff. Again, keep following us on social media. All those schedule updates, lcsportsnet.com has them all posted up there as well. And enjoy. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please, send us the questions. Send us the discussions. We'd love to get you guys involved as well during these live shows to, talk Lawrence County, talk statewide football, because, Eric's got all the connections across the state to understand a lot more about what's going on with some of the schools in the central and eastern part of the state. So we'd love to discuss more of those with you as well. You'll hear him at Riverside, Laurel at Riverside on Friday night at 7 o'clock for kickoff, 6:30 for the pregame show. You'll hear Mir and Lee Moan at Mohawk for the Mohawk Shenango homecoming game coming up on Friday night as well. Thanks, everybody, tuning in live or archived. We'll see you on Friday Night Lights here on the Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP. your voice for Lawrence County sports.
The gold ball headed home.